Welcome to lesson conditional rendering. In React, you can create distinct components that encapsulate behavior you need. Then you can render only some of them depending on the state of your application. Conditional rendering in React works the same way conditions work in JavaScript. You can use JavaScript operators like if or the conditional operators to create elements representing the current state and let React update the UI to match them. Let's do conditional rendering in action. Consider these two components, and we want to create a greeting message that displays either of these components depending on whether a user is logged in. Open React start point in codepen.io/passir/pen/qyjpqy. Then fork this codepen, and we want to start writing code here. Rename the component to greeting, and also here we want to define two functional components: user greeting we just say welcome back, because he or she is already logged in, and a greeting for guests we show sign up for him. In greeting component, we read the probs is logged in like this, and if is logged in will return user greeting, else return guest greeting as a component. And in greeting we define is logged in true, and as you see, the greeting message will be welcome back. If we change it to false, inside the greeting component, this .probes.is logged in will be false, and the else part will be run, which is guest greeting, and guest greeting show sign up as you see here. Let's move on to element variables. You can use variables to store elements too. This can help you conditionally render a part of the component while the rest of output doesn't change. Let's create another sample which shows a login button and a logout button. Go back to React start point and fork it again. Here we define a logging control. Here we want to use handling events, so I define a constructor and set the state of is logged in to false. And here I define two methods, first for logging and the second for logout. Handle login click, when user click on login, I set the state of is logged in true, and I duplicate this part of code and change it to logout. I set this logged into false, and here inside the render function I define a variable button which check the value of is logged in state. If it's true, button will be this button, which it's on click is this dot handle login click, and its caption is login. So as you see, it's a variable to save the value of JS6 based on the condition of is logged in. And if user is not logged in, the button variable will be log out with handle logout click, as you see here. Use button variable, and I want to show a message too, which is this dot state dot is logged in is user here. We need to change the if, because if user is logged in, we need to show logout button, and if user is logged in, we need to show login button. Very good. Let's check this sample. Here I click on login, and is logged in state will be true, and the button variable here render the logout, because is logged in is true, and this part will be run, and the value of button will be this JS6, and it's render here like this. Great. So we know how to use element variables like this. Also, you can use inline if with logical condition and operator. You may embed any expression in the JSX by wrapping them in curly braces. This includes the JavaScript logical AND operator. It can be handy for conditionally including an element. Let's create a mailbox component which shows the number of unread messages with logical AND operator. Let's save this sample and go back to React start point and fork it again. Here we want to define a mailbox which shows unread messages. It's a mailbox. And in the render method, I defined messages array with 2 items, and I want to render number of unread messages only if there is at least one message in the messages array. So here I use curly bracket and messages dot length greater than 0, and here I use AND operator, and this part messages dot length greater than 0 is true this div will be rendered. You have 2 unread messages. Here you see, if change the messages array to an empty array like this, you see there is no result because the message.length greater than 0 evaluate to false, so the expression after AND will not run anymore. But if the messages have items, this part will be rendered. Also, you can use inline if and else with conditional operators. Another method to conditionally rendering element inline is to use the JavaScript conditional operator condition true and false. Here in the mailbox sample, you can convert the AND operator to inline conditional operator like this. If messages.length is greater than 0, show this message, else I use parentheses like this. The else part will be written after colon, and here is the else part. We need to show you have no message. Here, if the number of messages is 0, the else part will be run, you have no messages, and if user have message, this part will be rendered. You have 2 messages. You should mention that just like in JavaScript, it's up to you to choose an appropriate style based on what you and your team consider more readable. Also remember that whenever conditions become too complex, it might be a good time to extract a component. In rare cases, you might want a component to hide itself even though it was rendered by another component. To do this, return null instead of its render output. Let's create a warning banner which shows a warning when user click on show warning and hide it when user click on hide. Let's save the sample and get back to React start point and fork it again. Here we want to implement a warning banner and if show is true, it render this is warning and if show is false, this part will run and will return null. So nothing will be shown in warning banner. In the app, we have warning sample and in the render set show to true, and here I use the warning banner component and set show probes to value of show like this and put all of them inside a div. You see, the warning banner, this is a warning, will be shown. And if I set the show to false, you see, nothing will be rendered because it returns null, and null will be nothing in the screen. Very good. So it's a way to preventing component from rendering in some cases. That's all about conditional rendering. Follow other lessons codingwithbasir.com.